Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this, our first Task Force Campus Conversation. My name is Rose Martinelli, and I'm the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at Stony Brook, and I am so pleased to be able to be here today and help facilitate the conversation that we're having today. This is the first of 5 Task Force Campus Conversations that will occur over the next 2 weeks. And I'm pleased today to introduce you to our co-chairs for the first of these task force conversations, the co-chairs of Stony Brook Medicine. I'm pleased to introduce David Thanassi. David is professor and chair of the Department of Microbiology and Immunology. And Aaron Sasson, who is professor of surgery and chief of the Division of Oncological Surgery. Thank you, both of you, for being here today to help introduce us to your task force and what you're being able to learn. Today's presentation, we've asked our co-chairs to spend some time describing what they've learned, the scope of the project, the opportunities, and a little bit more about the working groups and the initiatives moving forward. We do want to leave time for Q&A during the session. So if you would submit your questions today during the session through the Q&A function during our session today, that would be also wonderful. In addition, we received a number of questions through the Financial Sustainability website, and we hope to get to those as well. About the website. If you haven't already been to our website, I would urge you to do so. There you can find much more information about the Strategic Budget Initiative, our various task forces, the working groups that are being set up, and a lot more about what's happening on campus, including our financial resources. So let's begin. So what is financial sustainability anyway? Financial sustainability is really the baseline critical requirement for any viable institution. But that's not what this initiative is all about. Today, it's not about downsizing or cutting staff or reducing faculty, but fundamentally, it's about the 4 things. It's really about strengthening, investing, and improving on our competitive strengths. Second, it's really about improving the way we work together by streamlining how we work together. Third is about reducing or eliminating all those obstacles that exist on our campus that prevent us from collaboration, effective collaboration. And finally, it's about creativity and innovation. How do we grow new parts of this campus as we get to move forward and build upon our strengths as we move into the next generation and thrive as an institution? So I hope that you will learn more about some of these things today from David and Aaron as we get started. So I'd like to actually turn over our time to Aaron to begin to introduce us to the Stony Brook Medicine Task Force. Now, before I do so, I want to just urge Aaron and David to take time to tell a story. One of the most interesting things that I've learned about working with Aaron and David is how much we've learned in such little time. We started back on October 5th, and we have just been learning and growing and really trying to understand how to make things more effective and stronger as we work together as a university. And so let's tell our story, and let's have some fun today. So thank you so much. Aaron, why don't you begin?
Rose, on behalf of David and I, thank you very much for that and for your leadership. I think I like to put into some context or background as to what Stony Brook Medicine is. And I guess, generally speaking, it's going to, for our purposes, comprise of the School of Dental Medicine, the Renaissance School of Medicine, the School of Health, Technology and Management, the School of Social Welfare, the School of Nursing, the Stony Brook Hospitals, and the Clinical Network. And as we talk about our task force and what it has been doing and its accomplishments so far, I think it's important to note that we have been doing this under the overarching mission of achieving financial sustainability. And as you said, Rose, I and David and the rest of the task force, as well as other task forces, have commented upon how the initiative has been more about becoming more efficient and growing opportunities with no discussions about cuts. And so I think that we have taken that to heart, and we have been focusing on on ways to become more efficient in Stony Brook medicine, as well as to grow more opportunities. I'd also like to re-emphasize what you said about the website. Much of what we're going to be discussing today is available on the website, and I would encourage all of you to look at the financial sustainability link, and much as it is updated periodically. Stony Brook Medicine is an important asset to the Long Island community as well as to Stony Brook University. Its growth and success is vital to the university's growth and stability. The relationships among all the different components of Stony Brook Medicine, which include the 5 HE schools I just mentioned, the Stony Brook University hospitals, the practice plan, and the clinical network, is very complex. And we've been asked to look at the organizational structure as well as the governance to determine whether any improvements in efficiencies or organization and collaboration can be achieved via any promising changes. Also important to note that healthcare is changing. Healthcare is changing rapidly. And as academic medical centers, which we are one of them, we need to learn to adapt and to adjust to these changes in order to maintain a competitive edge and be financially sustainable. And so, as such, it's relevant to periodically examine how funds and resources are utilized to support the critical missions of research, education, and clinical practice amongst Stony Brook Medicine. And we will be doing that as well. I think in particular, with regards to both the research and the education mission, there's a significance into achieving a one campus culture. And to that end, we will be partnering with the Research and Innovation Task Force, as well as the Academic Portfolio Task Force, to see if there's opportunities that can result from efficiencies and better alignment for those particular two missions as it relates to the entire university campus as a whole. And I think we're excited about doing that, as we have learned so much by partnering or working with these other task forces to begin that discussion. I'd also like to direct everyone to the website, as the full list of the task force members is available. But broadly, or specifically, I'd like to comment on the broad representation of the task force members from all of the HSC schools, including faculty, staff, administrators, including the hospitals and the clinical network. As Rose says, we've been meeting weekly since October. During that time period, we've had an opportunity to engage and discuss with leadership and decision makers regarding to the aspects of Stony Brook Medicine that we need to investigate. In addition to that leadership or obtaining firsthand knowledge on our own, we've also been augmented by an outside consultant agency that specializes in academic medical center. And it was useful or informative to have an outside independent perspective that could give us some insight as to our functioning, but also as to the functioning of other academic medical schools, how they are adjusting to the current healthcare challenges as well. But I think that it's important to note that with consultants or any consultancy, we used their input as part of the information that we synthesized from talking to leadership currently on campus here to help us in the entire task force determine what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and what are the things that we can do to improve and achieve some of our goals for financial sustainability. And with that, I'll turn it over to David, who will discuss the things that we have learned.
So thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Rose. And I would just like to extend my gratitude and thanks to our task force members, and to our fellow task force and co-chairs, and also to the leadership for bringing this important opportunity forward at this time. So as Rose said, this has been a real learning experience, and certainly as a basic scientist in Stony Brook Medicine and University, it's been a real eye-opening to see the depth and the breadth of the enterprise we have here at Stony Brook Medicine and how it relates to the university as a whole and as well to the Long Island community and region. So we definitely have a strong, vibrant, and diverse enterprise here, and really committed to excellence in research, education, and clinical care. So at the same time, and part of this process is to identify opportunities for growth, areas where we can improve efficiencies and really strengthen what we are doing. And of course, as part of that, we are recommending and examining proper governance structure, considerations to better operate Stony Brook Medicine as a whole. And of course, with the leadership changes that are occurring now, this is really an opportune time to say, what have we been doing? Where can we improve? And what's the best practice going forward? And to provide that advice to the leadership. So of course, the clinical presence, as Aaron mentioned, the network on Long Island is vital to the region, as well as to the university as a whole. And so we really need to examine how we are fitting into that regional network, our clinically integrated network, and how we can best utilize that and enhance that mission. And then finally, as Aaron mentioned, we are partnering with the Research and Innovation Task Force and the Academic Portfolio Task Force to really make sure we are supporting the research and educational missions of Stony Brook Medicine as a whole. I might have the next slide, Aaron. So I'm not going to read through this list, but this is just some of the top-level opportunities and areas we need to investigate that we've come up with as a task force. And of course, governance, transparency, how we engage all the stakeholders and members of Stony Brook Medicine for the betterment of our enterprise and the university as a whole is the top issue, as well as funds flow and resource allocation. This is critical to understanding our clinical enterprise and how those revenues can be used to support, again, our academic research and teaching missions. And again, I think something that's really come out from our interactions over the last few months has been that Stony Brook is a diverse enterprise made up of these 5 health professional schools and the clinical network. So we need to understand how we can support all of the different aspects of Stony Brook Medicine and integrate that as part of a one campus opportunity. So if you could, next slide. So I'd like to just go into then some of the specific areas we've already started to take action on. And these are the formation of what are called working groups. So working groups are not subgroups from the task force, but they're areas we've identified, and then we bring in expertise and people with the content knowledge to examine these issues in detail and make recommendations. So again, this brings in additional stakeholders and players from the entire campus, and the membership for these working groups will also be updated on the website. So I just want to go through a couple that are already in progress, and this is the Expanded Clinical Enterprise Working Group. And this is something where, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense that our students, our departments, our different health professional schools have the ability to engage in clinical practice activities. And currently, this is something that's in place for the School of Medicine and also to some extent for the dental school, but not really for the other clinical schools, or not really at all. And so this is an obvious area that needs to be established and is an obvious source for revenue generation. And this is co-chaired by Lisa Layton and Spencer Busia. Another aspect that is a real obvious place that we can expand and make opportunities is to make sure that our students and our trainees have access to rotation and clinical experiences at our facilities. And so this is a working group that's co-chaired by John Riley and Carolyn Santora that's forming to look to make sure that our students, again, have first access to our resources. Next slide, please. So here's just a couple more that are in progress of being formed. One, again, is to look at this idea of the different health professional schools, the 5 schools that make up Stony Brook Medicine, and examine where are the needs, where are areas we can improve and better integrate, and again, make recommendations up, particularly in this time of leadership change. And we want to look at all aspects of revenue, including sources such as philanthropy. And again, this is a group that's being formed and organized as we speak. And then very importantly, as I mentioned, the funds flow piece. So again, the clinical enterprise here is vibrant, it's successful, it's being expanded with the clinical integration network. But there is room for improvement in how the clinical practice management plan, the clinical billing structure is organized. How can that be improved? And again, the goal is to think how best we can use our resources to support not only the clinical missions, but the academic and research piece as well. And so with that, I'll pass it back to you, Rose.
Thank you, David. You know, what was really interesting to me in sitting in these task force meetings was the amount of information that we kind of waded through and how much learning that was done within those task forces. We know our worlds, but we don't know how those worlds intersect. And I think that was the power of the work that we've done to date, and then to identify those opportunities where we can make immediate progress has been really wonderful. So thank you so much for your leadership already. It's been an amazing learning process. Before we launch into the Q&A section, I wanted to update the community on the survey that we launched in December regarding the Strategic Budget Initiative. We closed that survey just about a week and a half ago and are in the process of compiling the results and putting together final reports. But I did want to share a few highlights before we go into the Q&A. We had more than 2,200 people complete the survey, which is amazing. You can see from the bottom left corner a little bit about the overall response rates, where our faculty members were dominant participants in providing their input. And then in the upper right quadrant, most people are really following the Strategic Budget Initiative, at least those who completed the survey. And for those of you, I say thank you so much. A couple things that I think are really important that I found very heartening from the survey is that while we know as an institution and in our units it might be challenging to make these changes, overall, more than 2/3 of our population felt confident in our leadership in helping to create a pathway, and that we felt even more strongly about our individual efforts to adapt and change and take on this challenge as a collective whole. To me, that's powerful. This type of project, this type of interrelated work together really is dependent on all of us embracing the opportunities and some of the challenges of navigating change as a collective body and of community members. So thank you so much. So I guess it's about time for us to start addressing some of your questions. Now, I want to be clear here. There are many things swirling around in the world today, as is the announcement today of our new provost, some leadership decisions that were recently made about Stony Brook Medicine, and also the work of the Stony Brook Medicine Task Force. They all seem a little bit like they're all the same, but they're not necessarily. So we're going to try to address as many of your questions where we have answers. And so please bear with us as we try to address as many questions as we can today. So thank you. All right, so the first question, let me read this. Are there plans to continue to expand Stony Brook Medicine on Long Island? For example, setting up urgent care centers like Northwell has done. So I'm going to turn this over to Aaron.
So thank you, Rose. I think the question is vitally important. Truly, during this process, we have learned of the significance and the importance of the clinically integrated network. It is its strength, its promise. It needs to be fully utilized to help Stony Brook Medicine grow as an entity. The specifics of which, with regards to developing, so there is definitely a enthusiasm to expand and promote the network. With regards to the specifics of urgent centers, I can't comment because I don't know that yet, but that is something that the task force could and probably will investigate through some of these other working groups with regards to the network or the clinical practice.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. Our next question. Could you clarify what the relationship role will be between the new provost and the dean of the School of Medicine? I'm going to let David have a first cut at that, and then I might need to address that as well.
Great. And I know this is an area of interest for many people, and one which is still being defined, as I understand it.
Yes.
But my understanding is that the new dean will be the dean of the School of Medicine, and then all the deans of the different health professional schools, so nursing, dental school, School of Medicine, health technology and management, and social welfare. Those deans will report, rather than reporting to the senior vice president for the health sciences, will report to the new provost. And the idea is to try and get a better alignment on the academic and research side across campus, and to make sure we're promoting a unified mission for the campus as a whole. And the clinical mission then will stay distinct and be managed more by the senior vice president.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, David. So will there continue to be an SVP for the health sciences, or will there be a CEO for the health system? Aaron, I'll give that to you.
Another great question. I think some of the details with regards to the governance need to be worked out, and clearly there's a need for there to be some overriding leadership with regards to the health system. I think it's important to note that there are multiple governance structures for academic medical centers. No one academic medical center owns the rights to the best method. Otherwise, we'd all be doing it. And I think that multiple academic medical centers have different governance structures, and we need to adapt or pick one that we think is going to be best suited for our needs at Stony Brook University. So I think with regards to the specifics, they still need to be worked out, but clearly there's going to be some overriding leadership with regards to the clinical enterprise, given how valuable it is to the Stony Brook Medicine as well as to the university at large.
No, thank you, Aaron. And it's unclear what titles will be in the future, but I know those things will be worked out in the coming weeks as the search gets underway. So thank you. So our next question. This will be an interesting one. Can the university use CPMP funds and or hospital reserves to help with the budget deficit? Who wants to take that? David, you want to take that one on? And then maybe,
oh, sure.
that
Why
one's
not?
A big one.
Why not? And then Aaron can jump in. So certainly, as I mentioned, there's a working group being formed right now to look at CPMP and hospital funds and to examine its current structure and the best use of these funds going forward. I think the short answer is yes. These funds can be used to support the Stony Brook Medicine enterprise as a whole. And to some extent, and again, this needs to be investigated, the university as a whole. And so this includes not only the clinical mission, but also the research and academic missions. And that is certainly a high priority going forward for not only our task force, but for the working group.
I'd like to echo, I think that this is exactly one of the topics that the working group that's being developed now with regards to CPMP and funds flow is going to tackle and to address to see, is it relevant, useful, efficient utilization of, so all these things will be evaluated, I think, and part of this new working group that's going to be devised. And I think it's important to reemphasize what David had said, that these working groups are just not subcommittees of the task force. The overwhelming majority of these working groups are comprised of non-task force members, and their role will be, this particular working group with regards to CPMP will have a wide range of topics to evaluate. I'm sure this will be one of them.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And I just want to remind everyone, the Strategic Budget Initiative and task forces are recommending bodies. We are here to evaluate opportunities, but then we extend or pass along those recommendations through the Financial Sustainability Committee up through to executive leadership. So we're identifying opportunities, but the final decision relies with executive leadership. Okay. So I'm going to go with Aaron on this one. Which of the consulting group's recommendations do you think are achievable?
I think it's important to note that in our discussions with the consultants, the outside consultants who provide us with their perspective, they provide us with a lot of observations and insights as to what we're doing as compared to other medical centers. And I think the task force at a whole took that information and used it as we did other pieces of information we got from speaking with other leaderships. So I don't necessarily think that they did not provide a blueprint for success, because as aptly noted by the consultants, there are many ways of running an academic medical center. And so I think we took some of their observations and are using that to help guide us in developing working groups to examine the areas that they thought should be examined, such as resource allocation for research, aligning the educational mission across all the schools and possibly and also the university. So those were the types of areas that they had discussed with us in our task force.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, David, how are we working differently as a system or network than we did a few years ago? What is our ranking as a Northeast hospital system? Are we trying to move up?
So I'm going to answer to the best of my ability as a basic scientist, and I may ask Aaron to jump in. But I know over the past 10 years, there's been an enormous change in growth in the clinical enterprise that Stony Brook University and Stony Brook Medicine represents. And again, this has been a really important task of our clinically integrated network to investigate our current standing and how we can grow and develop. I know we rank high in many metrics. I know there's room for improvement. I don't have the specific rankings myself, and maybe Aaron, if you know.
I think the difficulty about rankings is there are numerous agencies out there that rank various health centers. I think what we need to do as an organization is to try to improve our efficiencies, develop quality metrics, and all of those other rankings will then follow, per se. I think trying to game the system to try and improve your ranking for one particular agency is not the path that we should be choosing. And I think we should be trying to improve our health system, improve our quality, and I think everything else will follow.
Great. I completely agree. That's a great way of putting it. All right. What are the plans to increase extramural funding by School of Medicine faculty, given that many of the SOM faculty have 12-month lines? Right over there to David.
I can take that one.
All right.
So extramural funding, improving research is a major goal, not only of our task force, not only of the Research and Innovation Task Force, which you'll be hearing about soon, and which we are working closely with on this effort, but also with the new leadership, the new president. And I know we need to grow our research enterprise. And it's an interesting point. So this is one of the issues of needing maybe better cross-campus unity, in that historically members of the School of Medicine or Stony Brook were appointed on 12-month lines. However, since the past 5 years or so, these faculty are appointed on 6-month lines. And then you have on the West Campus, on the main campus, you have faculty appointed on 9-month lines. And so I think there's a real opportunity and something that we are going to investigate for certain, and in terms of maybe trying to bring some unity to how faculty are appointed, and thinking about ways to incent faculty for improved research productivity. And again, I think the question is particularly addressing faculty on 12-month lines, where, what is their motivation for wanting to succeed, and to put out additional effort. And so that's something where I think we as members of the community, as leaders, need to set standards, needs to do strategic planning, and engage in ways to incentivize more research productivity.
Oh, thank you, David. And for those who are interested in learning more about the Research and Innovation Task Force, that campus conversation will be taking place on Thursday, and it'll be a great place to ask some of these same questions. Aaron, to you, what is the CPMP? I never understand what that stands for. And how does it relate to the School of Medicine, especially for budget and governance issues?
So CPMP is an acronym for the Clinical Practice Management Plan, and it is the arm that allows for the physicians to bill for their services for the clinical activities that they form. So it is comprised of 17 individual practice units and with one overarching governing body, the CPMP, to help facilitate and administrate that practice, that billing function. I'd say that this type of system was very commonplace. 15, 20 years, almost all academic medical centers were comprised of a hospital, a school of medicine, and a building and a practice plan. I'd say, though, that we need to examine that. Most schools have modified that style of governance structure or arrangement to become more efficient. And I think that some of the working groups that we're going to establish will look at that and to see, is this still viable or still a reasonable plan going forward? And it might well be, versus other options that we can endeavor with to see if we can become more efficient and be a better place or a better way of achieving the billing component. And so I think that is something that the working group will examine.
It's interesting you said it's a billing component, and I know so much of what we wrestle with within kind of our entity structures is the legal kind of restrictions as we go forward. And I know for every step that we're taking, investigating what the allowance is, where is the elbow room, and what can we do to make and affect change is very much in our minds as we go forward. So thank you for that. I just didn't think about that before as a building entity. That's a good way of thinking about it.
Well, I think it's going to also, as David had alluded to in one of the working groups, we were surprised that the dental school, which does do some billing, admittedly doesn't do it very effectively, and has a challenging time even sending out bills. The School of Nursing, the School of Social Welfare, the School of Health Technology Management, they too have clinical components which they want to bill, but have no way of doing so. So clearly, whether we keep all the 17 components of CPMP the same, but we still need to come up with a way to expand billing as a whole, so that other schools in the HSC or even across campus on West Campus, if they perform clinical functions, have a way to bill and generate more revenue. That's, to us, to the task force, we thought this was a easy, low-hanging fruit to generate more revenue very quickly for the HSC and the university at large.
That's great. Thanks, Aaron. All right, David, this is a good one for you. How are the co-chairs for the remaining working groups going to be selected?
So the process for the working groups is the task force to identify areas we think are opportunities that need examination. And we discuss this at the steering committee level as well. And then we as a joint group decide, okay, here are some areas we think we can move forward on at this time. And then in general, in task force, there may be a small part of the task force that comes together to draft a proposal for the working group. And we together come up with a list of possible names for co-chairs as well as members. But those names can get suggested up to you, to Rose, and to the leadership, and to the steering committee as a whole. And it's really sort of a larger decision-making on who might be the best experts to sit on this working group, and also to make sure we are hearing from all the different stakeholders. And so it's sort of it's a process that evolves. Again, it's not that the working group, that our task force says this is who it's going to be, and we make the decision. We engage the larger community to make sure we have the proper expertise and representation.
Great. Thank you.
And I think I want to echo that. I think it's important that the leadership makes those decisions, because we really would like to avoid, or I'm sure we'd like to avoid having multiple people co-chair multiple working groups.
Yeah.
And so we can't ask too much of people's time. So I think the executive leadership understands, because remember, we're just not creating working groups for Stony Brook Medicine. You're going to hear in future campus conversations about all 10, 15, 20 more working groups that are ongoing throughout the entire campus. And so our ability for the executive leadership to have membership that's broad and representative of the entire campus is critical. So I think it's important that people note that there are many factors involved with not just the co-chairs, but with the committee people itself, for the working group members itself.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Just in the last 2 weeks, we've launched another 6 working groups out of 20 more that are coming. And so there will be hundreds of faculty and staff and administrators engaged, and we want to grow leadership and we can't burn out leadership. So it's really important that we stretch and try to balance expertise. So yeah, thank you. Thank you both. All right, David, how can the new system promote cross-campus programmatic translational research proposals?
So I'm assuming here that the new system is the new leadership structure. And I think having more of a tie-in to the provost and to the university as a whole certainly provides a direct link to promote cross-campus collaboration. And as I mentioned before, this is a high priority, growing research and growing collaborative interactions for the new leadership, for the new president. And also, I believe it is the topic of a working group from the Research and Innovation Task Force, yeah, which again will engage stakeholders from across Stony Brook Medicine as well as the university. So I do think that this realignment provides an opportunity to better support research opportunities and better integrate across campus to really take advantage of the expertise we have in so many different areas here at Stony Brook.
That's great. You know, what was really interesting to me sitting in on all these various task forces is how little we know of each other. With some very interesting comments about using shared faculty, using a shared research that's going on that hasn't really been connected very well. And so just learning about this, I think the power in the Financial Sustainability Initiative is so many faculty and staff meeting each other for the first time and connecting on those points of intersection that really kind of lead to innovation and some entrepreneurial thinking. And just recently we had a faculty on East and West come up with a great idea, and they're off developing a research proposal just because of a chance conversation after a meeting. So it's a really exciting time when we get to know each other.
I think I was particularly struck by meeting all of the deans of the various all of the HSE schools, how they're all committed to research and they all have challenges, but all the challenges were very similar. Mm-hmm. And speaking with the Research and Innovation Task Force as well, the challenges exist throughout the entire campus. And so I think if we're able to coordinate and work together, and help eliminate some of these challenges, the entire research endeavor will improve greatly.
Yeah. Catalyze what we do.
Yes.
I mean, really build upon and invest in our strengths. I completely agree. All right, David, many of these recommendations, governance changes, increased clinical activity, expanding research, have been made before. What will be different this time?
A very good question. And certainly I've been here for over 20 years, so I sense this this question for sure. Take that to heart. And what I can say is certainly for myself personally, I think this feels like a different experience. Obviously there's anytime you have a change in leadership that brings in new ideas and new thoughts, it's an opportunity to really examine what we're doing and how to improve going forward. And I think 2 additional things I'll say and maybe see what Aaron has to say, but one is there's a real urgency right now, given the situation, the budget hits from the pandemic and from other structural issues that have built up over the years. So I think we really need to succeed more than ever now. And then I also think the fact that to me it feels different in that it's engaging people from across the university at all levels and trying to be, I think, a more open and transparent process, a more ground up process. And that gives me hope that this is really something we're going to be able to affect some real change and make improvements going forward. So all I know is that I can say on behalf of Aaron and myself and that we're doing our best and I'm certainly committed to ensuring that this takes hold going forward.
I think historical context is important, and obviously it's important to realize things that have been done in the past, but clearly things are very different. Things aren't the same as they were 10 years ago. Medicine has changed, at least from the medicine component. Medicine has changed drastically. The research and funding has drastically changed as well. And I think that trying to do the same thing over again that we've done in the past, just for that sake, is not wise. I think it's important that we look at all of our options. But I also want to emphasize or to make the point that there's no sense that we need to make a change for change's sake itself. If we don't think that if a area is being investigated, it doesn't mean that we're going to utilize that area. It's just an area that we're going to investigate to see if it works well. So I don't think there's going to be necessarily change for change's sake itself. I think we have to be thoughtful about the things that we want to do, be aware of what was happened in the past, but be mindful. But clearly, times have different. So no matter how it was done in the past, the environment has changed.
Yeah. One of my observations is that we're doing this in a systematic way. We're looking at the entire university as a system that has, when one part of it changes or needs to change, they all kind of adjust around it. And because it's being led by our faculty and staff who actually live it and do it every day, we're learning so much more about how to improve everyday work while trying to move beyond incremental change to really accelerate our trajectory and really be ambitious here. So there's a lot of pieces moving, and to me, that's the excitement. It's how they fit together and interrelate. That gives me enormous hope, and we've got to, and I think we really want to. Two things that are really important. Mm-hmm. All right. Are there ways to create more interactions between faculty, for example, faculty club, to promote cross-campus collaborations? David.
Well, certainly there are ways to do this, and I think both our task force and the academic portfolio task force and the research and innovation task force and this is a component that's really key to this one campus bridging across the different parts of the campus. And I think at this point we haven't investigated ourselves deeply into that question, and we're open to suggestions. And again, I think. In terms of the task force, we're really trying to promote that at the level of different professional schools in Stony Brook Medicine. When we look at the resource needs and the governance structure, how best to integrate and promote what we do within Stony Brook Medicine, and then we can build on that to try and tie out to the rest of campus. So I don't have specific recommendations we have come up with. And again, this is where we welcome feedback, input through the website, as well as directly to Aaron and myself.
Yeah. I think one of the things in the Zooming world that we live in, or Teams world and that we live in, it's finding occasions or topics to gather that can act as a kind of the catalyst for ideas and exchange. We've let Nichols Road become really, really wide, and that we don't know each other. So how might we think about strengthening that in terms of just knowledge of each other? I think that's the question that both research and innovation is tackling, Stony Brook Medicine is tackling, and the academic portfolio group is tackling. How do we get to know each other and really build upon each other's energy, strengths, and expertise? So lots for us to explore. And this is where we need to hear from you, our faculty, staff, and administrators. What are your ideas? That's going to help us a lot. All right, Aaron, do we intend to involve students in the task force efforts?
Absolutely, when appropriate for the working group. Absolutely, if I think there's a commitment to having a broad and diverse representation on these working groups for the topics, and so when appropriate, absolutely, there's no reason why there wouldn't be students of varying degrees of whether undergraduate, graduate, or doctorate involved in some of these task forces.
Great, thank you.
Some of these working groups, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know we're planning as the financial sustainability initiative in general. Many of the groups are going to be forming some focus groups with students and undergraduate and graduate students in the coming weeks to really bounce some ideas off. So those are things will be happening in the near term. This is a good question. So who will Stony Brook University Hospital leadership report to under the new structure? I think I'll take that one for just a moment. There is a lot yet to be determined as we evolve over the coming months in our governance structure between Stony Brook Medicine, the hospital, the 5 health sciences schools and the university. And I know we would all like to have some definitive answers right now, but what I can say is we're all thinking about that, and more information will be forthcoming as we decide and work with a variety of people who are consulting and advising us around these issues. But for now, everything remains the same. And I think that's the first thing, is we are the same until we announce a different decision. So I have a question for the two of you. As you've been co-chairing this this task force, what has really been what I would say most inspiring for you in the work that you're doing here right now?
I'd say that it is become clearly evident that, speaking to the leadership that we've met with, as well as the task force members, that there is a strong commitment to the mission of Stony Brook Medicine. Everybody is interested in better research, better education, better clinical care. There's, without a doubt, a common theme for everyone involved to improve those 3 missions. Mm-hmm. And everyone is engaged. Everyone is committed to doing so. And so it's exciting. It's exciting to see that. And I was pleased by how much in common we all have with regards to the opportunities at Stony Brook Medicine here, as well as at Stony Brook University, in discussing these same concepts with the other task forces.
Yeah. I'm going to flip that one on the negative side. So what would have been the most challenging as a co-chair for you, David? Besides just long hours and many, 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 many meetings, I understand.
On top of everything, right? I think the challenges are, Stony Brook, as we sort of implied, Stony Brook Medicine, right, is a very complex, involved system. I mean, there's the 5 health professional schools, there's the hospital, there's the clinical network, there's the academic and the research missions and the teaching missions, and obviously the clinical missions. And the challenge is, where do you focus in that large effort? And of course, we're just really skimming the surface at some levels of what it is we can tackle and what we can do. And what we've tried to really focus on are, okay, where are some big issues where we can make an immediate impact, such as expanding clinical billing to all the different health professional schools, or examining, governance structure and needs that would support all the different professional schools, provide rotation opportunities in our practices for our students. So I think the challenge is it's really overwhelming, the complexity of what we do, but it's also very important to make sure that we integrate all that and really see areas we can focus and make a difference. And that's what I think we can do going forward.
That's really helpful. Thanks, David. All right, Erin, this next question's for you. And I think this goes everywhere, is whenever we're thinking about financial troubles. So are Stony Brook Medicine operations or departments being examined to identify possible cost business loss reduction opportunities? What happens if a department service line is not financially sustainable?
So I guess the short answer is no, of course not. I don't think that, we are not been tasked to look at specific departments or service lines for financial sustainability and then determine and then cut them. That would be, I think, incongruous with the mission of the health system or Stony Brook Medicine in providing patient care. If we would only provide profitable patient care, then we would maybe doing 1 or 2 service lines. That's it. But you need the whole conglomerate of service lines to take care of all the patients. So the answer is no. We are not we're not looking at cutting quote unquote non-profitable, because non-profitable doesn't mean it's not useful or important, and that's the case. So no.
And if I could maybe expand that, if we look at departments and units and on the non-clinical side, I mean, I think the idea is that we're trying to look in to see, okay, where are there areas that need to be addressed, where are there steps that can be taken to strengthen departments or areas that may be not living up to what they should be doing. And so it's really to try and identify remedies and improve this process, as well as identify efficiencies and cost savings and revenue generation. And that's really the mission that we're tasked with, not again to say, oh, this area is not performing well, and so we should really just remove it from what we do. That is not the goal.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, David. This is a good one. Are there non-tenured faculty on the task force? David, you want to go there? Start, and then I'll go to you.
Yeah. There's a mix of both tenure track, tenured, and staff as well on the task force. So it's not just tenured faculty on the task force. We are trying to build representation from all the different areas in Stony Brook medicine and bring that breadth of expertise and knowledge and opinions into our group.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll admit there's non-tenured faculty as a co-chair. I'm non-tenured, and so I think that that we are not selecting representation based on tenure or non-tenure, and there are many members of the task force who are both tenured and non-tenured, and nor has that ever been a consideration with regards to membership.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Last question. When will there be another update from this task force, and how often is the task force meeting? So I'll start. We'll let both of you kind of take this.
So I could start. I mean, the task force meets weekly, and we also, again, we have parts of the task force putting together working group descriptions and proposals, and then those working groups get formed and they become essentially independent from the task force as well. As to when we'll have another event like this with our task force, I'm going to have to defer to you, Rose, on that.
Take it under consideration. We'll take one thing that I think that is really important as each of these task forces have moved into the analysis and validation part of our journey together. This next 8 weeks or so is when the working groups are really taking deep dives into particular areas of inquiry to really understand kind of what the risks are, what the opportunities are, implementation costs, recurring, non-recurring costs, reputational impact, and how would we even do this if we determine to do this? That information will be coming back into the task force and then up into the steering committee. And we expect that there'll be maybe 150 plus initiatives that will come back to the financial sustainability steering committee to be then ranked and rated for approval and then implementation going forward. So this is an iterative process right now. And I imagine that the next bit of feedback going back to the community will happen sometime, maybe late February, as we get into this first round of vetting that's going on with the analysis and validation. So lots of going on. And I just, as we wrap up today, I want to thank you, Aaron and David, for your leadership. This has been an extraordinarily heavy lift. And I've been so grateful for your efforts and your wisdom and your ability to navigate lots of different people with competing interests as we really try to take a deep dive and understand how to strengthen Stony Brook medicine. So thank you so much. To the 30 or so faculty, staff, and administrators who've been serving on the task force, I want to give you my thanks as well. I know this has been a lot of work, and now we're expanding on, and I'm grateful for your efforts and commitment to make us a better institution. And for you who've joined us today, I want to thank you for participating. Where you have expertise or a point of view, please let us know. There are ways to connect with us. You can submit some comments and feedback through our financial sustainability comment form. There's questions and or ideas that you could submit that way. You could submit an email to me directly, and I'll make sure that Aaron and David get it. But your active participation, your belief in us as a university is so important in how we navigate these next steps and strengthen, and in many ways really try to put on the speed engine for really achieving our ambitions for the future. It's up to us. And so I want to thank you for being here today. If we didn't get to the questions today, we will update our FAQs on the website, so stay tuned for that. And again, Aaron, David, I so appreciate your time today, and I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.